If you are a private practice owner who wants to pay your clinicians well and still have a little bit of money left over for yourself, then this video is for you. I'm going to walk you through a very simple model to set pay, productivity, and pricing so that you can be generous with your team without going broke. Okay, guys, listen, we're all trying to balance three primary things inside of our businesses. Number one, a world-class experience for our patients. Number two, fulfilling work and growth for our clinicians and our team, and also a clinic that actually is financially healthy and predictably profitable. And the challenge to that is that reimbursement continues to squeeze us. It's getting tighter. We have compensation pressures, and a lot of owners are stuck working 60 to 80 hours a week and feeling in the dark and emotionally drained. I have been there. In fact, I probably get there once or twice a year whenever things shift around, but I end up working my face off and I still don't feel secure about the direction of my business. And I want to help you with that. All right? Because this is important. The antidote to this problem is to objectify your model with money math. When you know the math, you stop taking things personally, things stop becoming so emotionally overwhelming, and you start actually empowering yourself to make clear, objective, sound, confident decisions. And so today, I want to show you three pieces. Number one, I want to show you how to measure your real average revenue per visit and with clean tracking that you can trust. Number two, I want to show you the 3 times compensation rule and how to turn that into productivity standards for your team. And number 3, I want to show you what levers that you can pull if the model that you objectify looks impossible so that you can fix it instead of just guessing. Stick with me. I'm hoping that this is massively valuable for you. All right. Most practice owners feel, I'm using that word feel, that money is tight, but don't actually know why. And we're guessing. We end up guessing. Specifically, we're guessing at our revenue per visit. And the expenses, how you're spending money, is very blurry because your personal and your business expenses are all kind of mixed together and you're having a hard time tracking it. You've probably, when somebody asks you, hey, what's your revenue per visit? Or you have that conversation with yourself or with your team or in your head, you're probably saying something like, we're around $75 a visit. We're around $80 a visit. It's a very clean number. And I know that because I talk to a lot of you and a lot of our clients come to our program with this same type of mentality. And how we get that number is that we usually base it off of glancing at a couple Blue Cross Blue Shield EOBs and calling it a day. So we kind of look at what did Blue Cross Blue Shield pay us for the last 3 visits. We put a number on there and we use that as our kind of estimate, back of the napkin guess. We're kind of winging it with our average revenue per visit. That's bad. Don't do that because margins are tight and we got to get real tight with our calculations, and I'll show you how to do that. So the truth is that is lazy. It's lazy math. And when you start building salaries, all of your hiring decisions, all of your plans on lazy math, you get exactly where you're at right now. Really tight cash and a lot of constant stress. So step 1 to solving this problem is having a true, reliable average revenue per visit measured. Here's how you do it. So you're going to pull the last 12 months of total collected income. That's going to mean all the income, all of the insurance payments, all of the over-the-counter collections, any cash that is transacted inside of your business, whether it's inside of your account, whether it's cash, it doesn't matter. If you received cash in some capacity, we want to know about it, or we want you to know about it and we want to track it so that you know every dollar that actually is coming into your business. Then You pull your last 12 months of completed visits, not scheduled visits, not billed visits, not average visits, the actual number of completed visits actually seen and documented on. Then you simply divide your total revenue by your total visits for that 12-month period. And that is going to be your real average revenue per visit. Measuring it that way is going to be critical because that number is actually going to capture everything around your revenue cycle. Things like your payer mix, your demographics, how well you're collecting over the counter, how good you're coding and documenting, how often claims are being denied, how fast your billing team is collecting and turning those claims into actual cash. You don't need to go in and micromanage every single penny of that process, but you do need it to be very honest. And so no more just looking at a few claims and calling it a day. This is a very clear, objective way to do that. So that's how you clean that up, that make sure you have an actual number that you can rely on, that we can build off. Now, the second piece is clean cash tracking. If you're buying a lot of clinic stuff on your personal card, you're paying cash over here, you're doing some Venmo stuff over there, you're never going to really know your actual cost per visit. So you need to have a process so that you have one dedicated business account or card that you're tracking all expenses through. If it's a business expense, it goes on the card, period. Having discipline with that and making sure that you have rules of how you spend money, right? Because you, as an owner, you are the worst employee in the business. You're stubborn and you don't even follow your own rules. We want to make sure that we're setting up rules and disciplines and budgets such that everything is in place to serve the organization well. And that includes how you spend money. Okay. You have to create disciplines around how you spend money. So if you accidentally use a personal card on the business, reimburse yourself, right? So go to the business, write yourself a check so that it actually lands on the business books. The point is that all of your income and expenses live in one clean profit and loss, and it's not scattered across your entire life. That discipline lets you actually see, here's what it's costing me to run this place, which is critical. And here's what each visit is actually bringing in. Now the money can feel tight because it actually is and not because it's some type of mystery with a bunch of money raining all over the place. All right. So now that you have those things, big idea number 2 is that most clinicians and practice owners are struggling with payroll, not because they're bad people, but because the math between what clinicians earn and what they produce doesn't work. Right? So there's not an even exchange. Okay? I understand that you want to pay well and we want our team to be happy, but the model underneath your compensation packages must support it. All right? So in general, in a typical in-network model, a solid rule of thumb is that each full-time clinician needs to generate around 3 times their total compensation in collected revenue for their clinic to be reliably profitable. I'm going to say that in another way, and we're going to do the math together, but in general, your clinical team must generate 3 times the compensation package. Whatever you're paying them, they must generate 3 times that. This isn't a get-rich model. This is just a stable model that pays the owner and that allows you to invest back into the business reliably and predictably. And total compensation, in this case, means everything. All of the salary, the health benefits, the payroll taxes, the paid time off, any stipends. It's the full cost of that person to the business. So we're going to go through a quick example. So grab your pen and paper. If you have a physical therapist or a clinician and you're paying them, the total compensation is $100,000 a year. All right. For that clinician to be in a healthy spot inside your practice, they need to generate about $300,000 per year in collected revenue. That's not you being mean or me being mean. That's just the math of the overhead in a service-based business. So if you're any type of service-based business, you're going to fall within that expectation. And so from there, we can turn that into actual visits. So step 1 is to calculate the required annual revenue per clinician. That's going to equal their compensation times 3. So in this example, it's $100,000 times 3, which equals $300,000 for the year. Step 2 is to calculate your average annual visits. What that looks like is your required revenue divided by your average revenue per visit. So in this instance, if your average revenue per visit is $100, that's an example, then 300,000 divided by 100 is 3,000 visits per year. All right. Step 3 is your visits per week. Okay. That's going to be your annual visits divided by 48. We use 48 because we know that there's 52 weeks in a year, but you're going to have paid holidays, PTO. It's very rare that a full-timer, when I say very rare, I don't know if I've ever done it, where a full-timer will actually work 52 straight weeks a year. So in this instance, 3,000 divided by 48 is 63 visits per week. Now, that is your minimum completed visit productivity standard for that FTE in your business. Now, we can go to step 4. If you want to sanity check that schedule model, you can convert that into visits per hour. So it's 63 divided by 40 hours per week, which is 1.6 visits per hour. Your clinical team must complete 1.6 visits per hour per week in order for the money math to work. And so now you can ask yourself, does that work within my model? Does it work? Can we make this work? Is that one-on-one for 40 minutes? Is that some type of double booking process? Is that us using techs or aides? The point is that the math says 63 visits per week, and your clinicians are probably averaging 55, and you're going broke, or you're not hitting the margins that you need. And so regardless of how nice you are, you can't feel your way out of that problem. You must objectify it. Okay, so let's say that you've done the math and you know that your clinicians need to hit 63 completed visits a week. Here's where most companies blow it. They set that as a goal, but the schedule is only ever scheduled at 55. So let me show you how to solve this problem. The problem is, like, when you layer in cancellations and no-shows, the clinician at 55 will end up landing around 45 visits per week. And so everyone feels really busy and you're still wondering where the profit is. We fix that by adding 2 numbers. Number 1, your arrival rate, and number 2, your schedule utilization. So first, your arrival rate, you could take the last 90 days and calculate your arrival rate, which is going to be your completed visits divided by your scheduled visits, including all of the cancellations and no-shows that you had. So if over, let's say, the last 3 months, you had 2,100 visits scheduled, that's 700 visits a month. All right. And you completed 1,800 visits. So that's 600 visits a month. Then 1,800 divided by 2,100 is 0.86. And if you multiply that by 100%, that's an 86% arrival rate, which is pretty normal for a lot of clinics. Not good, not terrible, just normal. So now we can turn your completed visits target into a scheduled visits target. So now your required scheduled visits is going to be your completed visits, or your required completed visits divided by your arrival rate. So from our example, 63 divided by 0.86 equals 74 scheduled visits per week per FTE. So for that clinician to have a real shot of hitting 63 visits for the week, they need to start the week with roughly 74 visits scheduled. not 60. Definitely not. We'll see what happens. Now you have an actual schedule utilization standard. And this is what your front desk can be responsible for with you. So if I walk into your clinic and I ask your front desk, how many scheduled visits do you have for this full-time provider this week? And they say 71. You and I already know that the margins are going to be off for that week or for that month. Not because of the vibes, but because of the math. So we take three numbers and lock them in together. Number one, your average revenue per visit. Number two, your completed visits per week required to hit the 3 times comp rule. And number three, your scheduled visits per week required based on your arrival rate. At that point, your front desk isn't just keeping the schedule full. They have an actual number that we need at least 74 scheduled visits for this FTE every week, or we miss our margin. And if they don't like that number, we don't have to argue feelings. We go back to the model and adjust. We can adjust things like the compensation, the arrival rate, or the revenue per visit. So I'm going to let you kind of digest that. We ran through that really quickly. If you're not caught up on how that math works, pause the video, go back and run this. And don't make the mistake in thinking that you have to make the math work. Just run the math and see where you land. Odds are that you may do the math and think that there's no way that my clinicians can sustain that volume in my market or my model. You might say 74 is a lot, Adam. There's no way that I can do that. Fine, that's good. That means that we're actually finally dealing with reality and not fantasy. The point is we've defined it and we can manage it, or we can do something about it. So there's only 3 levers that you can pull. Lever number 1 is that you can accept that low margins are going to be a part of your reality. You might decide that, hey, 5 to 8% profit margins is enough for us, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. At least now you're in control and you know, right? Just be honest with yourself and stop pretending that you're at 20%, because you're going to be at 5 or 8% for the year, every year, all the time. And that's just going to be the way it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. Lever number 2 is that you can adjust your compensation structure with your team. That might mean that you can lower their base pay with some type of per visit or performance compensation that is more aligned with production in the 3 times rule. So you can change compensation level strategies with your team. But depending on where you're at in the country, you have to align your compensation based on reality, right? Because you can't pay California level salaries on a Mississippi reimbursement rate and expect that the math is magically going to work. Something was going to have to give. All right. Lever 3 is going to be for you to work to raise revenue per visit so that the required visits per week come down to a sane number. That is where tightening up your financial touch points in your business become critical. So you can tighten up over-the-counter collections. You can improve your coding with your providers, clean up your AR with your billing team. You can renegotiate contracts. You can add cash pay services. You can start implementing things like remote therapeutic monitoring to raise your revenue per visit. I've got a ton of videos somewhere else in the YouTube channel diving into those layers, and you can link some of those resources are going to be linked into the show notes below. But the key here is simple. If the math doesn't work, you must change the model and not hope and work harder. So just take that into consideration. Let's recap. If you want to pay your clinicians well without going broke, here's the plan. Number 1, get your real average revenue per visit and clean up your money tracking so that you actually know what's coming in and what it's costing you to run your business. So important. Number 2, use the 3 times or the 3x multiplication rule so that you can set clear revenue and visit targets with your clinicians. Number 3, translate that into completed visits per week and scheduled visits using your arrival rate and hold the front desk accountable to that standard. Once you have that all in place and you see the math, tight money in your business stops becoming emotional and becomes just a model problem that you can fix. And the good news is that models can be changed. You're not stuck. You just need to stop winging it and start using real numbers. And you can do it, all right? So if you want some help dialing in those numbers and building an admin system that actually supports them, you can book a call with Inbox Zero VA using the link in the description. We help tons of private practice owners clean up the front desk billing and admin chaos so that the math that you just built actually happens in real life. And I want that for you. Or if you want coaching, playbooks, and a money literate community of private practice owners doing this together, you can apply for the Private Practice Owners Club below. Either way, here's the key. Don't just watch this and move on. Pick one metric from today and calculate it for your clinic this week. Your business, your team, and your patients will thank you. My name's Adam. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.